Great oceans separated the Allied powers. The shipping lanes were the lifelines of the United Nations. With the British and the American navies spread thin over the 5 oceans, the German U-boats became bolder. This was the Battle of the Atlantic in 1942. In 10 months, the Allies lost over 500 ships. With each of these sinkings went down tons of desperately needed supplies for the fighting fronts in Russia, England, and Africa.
This was the Russian front in 1942. The Germans advanced, looting, torturing, murdering as they went. The casualties ran into the millions. They had driven 1,000 miles deep into Russian territory, into the wheat fields of the Ukraine, the great industrial centers of the South. But Russia, with her scorched earth policy, left nothing of value behind. Wheat which could not be harvested was set afire. Bridges were blown up, dams, railroads, power plants. Nothing was left that might be of use to the enemy. Old men, women, and children who had lost their villages became guerrilla fighters. They formed bands to sabotage and harass the Germans from behind the lines. The main German offensives were directed against Leningrad in the north, Moscow in the center, and the Caucasus in the south. The Russians, in desperate battles, counterattacked and checked the advance on Leningrad and Moscow. But in the south, on July 1st, 1942, after a siege of 180 days, Sevastopol fell. The German army now massed for an all-out drive on Stalingrad and the Caucasus. The conquest of the Caucasus and the capture of Stalingrad would block Russia's vital Middle East oil supply and make this oil available for the German war machine. Simultaneously in Africa, other German forces were driving for Suez to cut the British lifeline of supplies.
This was the North African front in 1942. The outnumbered and poorly equipped British Empire and fighting French forces had to retreat before the German advance. They were driven back across the desert to El Alamein, only 60 miles from Alexandria, key to the Suez Canal.
And on the Pacific front in 1942, the Japanese had spread like locusts over the eastern archipelagos. Following the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the Japanese had taken the American outposts of Wake and Guam. Hong Kong fell. Thailand yielded. The Philippines fell. And in swift succession, Singapore, Burma, the Netherlands East Indies, New Guinea, New Britain, the Solomons. Attu and Kiska in the American Aleutian Islands.